Welcome back, guys, for another episode of this series. I'm Dr. Faith, I'm your Faithful Doc, and today we're going to talk about my favorite skincare product, which is toners. So let's start. What do you need to know about toners? What is a toner? That's a really good question to start off with. Toners are meant for restoring balance to the skin. There's a difference between astringents and toners. If you think about lemons, maybe, think about how that makes your mouth pucker. That's kind of an astringent. It soaks in things and it just kind of makes your skin look a little bit more quote unquote toned. So astringents and toners actually get a similar treatment in that they're kind of sold in the same aisles, but there's a big difference between astringent and toner. So what's the big difference between a cleanser and a toner? Great question. Cleansers are the ones that kind of pull off the dirt, debris, grime, makeup that your skin accumulates throughout the day. And then toners help you to restore the balance, they help you hydrate, and they calm down the skin, and they also help you open up the pores before putting more product onto your face. Toners are my favorite products because they tend to show the most difference in people's skin. Why do I love toners so much? Great question. Toners to me was like the biggest change in my skincare I could possibly think of. I've seen it regulate people's oils. I've also seen it help people who have dry skin. I've seen it kind of do some amazing things, and it all has to do with just trying to get your skin back to its normal balance. Who'd have thought getting your skin to a normal balance would actually help, right? It blows my mind how people don't think that just getting it back to what it's supposed to be is not beneficial. But there's always caveats with products, right? So this skin series, I'm basically talking about how these products have issues with them and why you might want to go with a more natural toner versus a more conventional toner. So with a lot of natural products, the basic thing is that it doesn't strip your skin of the natural oils and balance that it has already. Basically, you don't want to be adding insult to injury, right? If you already have acne or dry skin or oily skin or any of these other issues, why are you putting things on there that could ruin that balance? So as mentioned previously, some benefits of a toner is that it helps restore the balance of your skin. Your skin sits about a 5.5 pH, and when you start putting extra products on it, it can actually throw off the balance. And why would you want to have your pH not thrown off? Because when it is outside of that balance range, it ends up growing bacteria, and then you have issues with oiliness and dryness, and your skin can't really be at its optimal glow. Some other great benefits is that it helps with absorption of your other products, as well as it gets rid of some dead skin cells that are sitting on there, and it helps you have a nice clean palette, gets rid of the extra grime that maybe your cleanser didn't have, and then it kind of puts everything back in its amazingness. So what are some dangers you might have with your conventional toners? Because like a lot of people talk about toners are amazing, but if you go and pick up something over the counter, what are some things that you basically want to be able to avoid? So what are some common ingredients that you see in your over-the-counter or conventional toners that you can find in any of your drugstores? Most toners in the market contain petroleum distillates and other synthetic ingredients. Those made for oily skin have either benzoyl peroxides or salicylic acid or both, which help regulate the oil on your skin. Both are skin irritants and to some degree cause some kind of sensitivity, rash, and at really high concentrations can cause neurotoxicity. Now, does it cause it on a regular basis? Yeah. The amount that you have in your skincare ingredients are basically not shown to be neurotoxic, but it doesn't need to be in your product. Most of the cosmetic toners and other things you can buy over the counter have phthalates and parabens as preservatives, which are terrifying ingredients, and you really just don't want them in your products. Last thing you might find in your conventional treatments, but I'm sure it's not the last thing, but the most terrifying thing, is formaldehyde releasing DMDM. It's got formaldehyde in it, the stuff they use to preserve dead bodies.
Yeah, that's stuff.
Terrifying. So anybody who's ever tried a toner has had maybe an issue with it stripping your skin. And that's because a lot of the over-the-counter toners tend to have some very harsh abrasive chemicals in them. The biggest one that I want to focus on for this video is actually fragrance. Now, fragrance is like a bane of existence for doctors and dermatologists and people who have sensitive skin, because it's under a proprietary blend, which means they don't have to tell you how much or what they put into their product, because it has to do with trademark. So they can put a whole bunch of crap in there and you don't know particularly what it is because it's labeled under fragrance, which is very terrifying. There can be over 1,000 different chemicals in a blend called fragrance. The biggest problem that I have with fragrance is they tend to have chemicals that are in the class called phthalates. Phthalates are awful, but what they can do is they can cause birth defects, respiratory issues, cancer, and they disrupt your hormones, as well as a myriad of other things that they probably haven't actually found yet. Another problem phthalates can have is that they can cause allergic reactions, rashes, and they're very harsh on sensitive skin. So if you haven't had more of an issue to get that phthalates and fragrance out of your products,
I don't know what else I could tell you.
The other issue that you can have with your conventional toners is they can have things like alcohols in them. In the alcohol category, you can have issues with the fact that it is drying out your skin, which could be worse for the people who already have dry skin, people who have sensitive skin, and people who also have rosacea or eczema. Be aware of products that have the word isopropyl or denat. D-E-N-A-T. And yes, we all know that alcohols can be very stripping of the skin and dry out the skin, but there's two particular things that they put in conventional toners that are kind of targeted towards oily skin, and that's benzyl alcohols and salicylic acid. Now with salicylic acid, which is basically aspirin, now there's some caveats when it comes to salicylic acid. It can potentially cause something called salicism, but there's not enough in your product to be able to cause that, because you're gonna have to be able to use over 6% of salicylic acid in your products, on top of the fact that you need to be dipping about half your body weight in it to get to that point. Does it still cause issues? Yes, it is a neurotoxin. And when it's inhaled, they can't really figure out how much they particularly need in order to cause that neurotoxicity. Now, when it comes to toners, they tend to only have about 2% in them, and you're only covering about 5% of your body. So technically, does it cause problem? Yeah, it can, but it doesn't normally cause an issue to a point where it's neurotoxic until it's at that high levels. Does that mean you should put it in your product?
Probably not.
So we could just avoid it altogether. Now with benzyl peroxides, they are very drying because it's supposed to be helping with oily skin, but they can also cause redness, irritation, rash, peeling, and a variety of other issues. So it's just best to avoid it altogether, because there's ways that you can do it naturally without having to assault your skin. Another thing is that when you introduce things like salicylic acid and benzyl peroxides, you can get sun sensitivity, which means that when you go out in the sun, you can actually have more issues with sun damage, and it causes irritation, and some people's skin actually burn. So if it was just me, I wouldn't put that on my skin.
Personally.
Now, when it comes to natural style toners, I will have to say my favorite is witch hazel. And there's a little bit of a caveat when it comes to witch hazel. I personally love it. It's called Hamamelis. I'll put the Latin name right here. And what it is it's a very astringent, toning, natural plant. The caveat I have with witch hazel, and that some people are concerned about, is that it might have a little bit of alcohol in it, about 12 to 14%, which can be very stripping to the skin. Here's the thing when you have botanicals. You have to get it out of the plant somehow. There is a variety of ways that you can extract the properties of a plant into things. You can do water extraction, which is basically making tea, but the plant has to be able to pull its properties out with that water. And sometimes the plant is a very resinous plant, which is kind of like sticky tape. You know how you could take sticky tape and you can kind of like use a alcohol or acetone or something to get that stickiness off? Well, it's kind of similar when you're extracting those out of a plant. You have to get high alcohol content to be able to pull those properties out of a plant. So that is what's happening with witch hazel, is you can have a little bit of alcohol in it. It's not because they add particularly alcohol to it, but sometimes they have to use high alcohol to extract out of the plant, and therefore it can be a little bit more drying. I love witch hazel, but you want to get a good quality organic witch hazel extraction. So what do you want in your natural toners? What do I recommend? Great question. I really enjoy things like witch hazel, geranium, vitamin C, And then also some soothing properties like aloe and other moisturizing ingredients. Those things are particularly helpful for restoring balance into the skin, being able to help tighten up minimize the appearance of pores, and also it just kind of gives you a clean slate because they tend to take off the old makeup, grime, grit, sweat, and all the other crap that comes on your skin at night. I like my toners to have a mixture of things. I feel like when you have a mixture of herbs, you tend to have a little bit more of a symbiotic relationship when it comes to adding all the properties together. The things that you really just want to avoid are your big alcohol things, the things that strip your skin, the things that cause cancer, the things that really you just don't need in your products. So that's all I got for you this week. I hope you're enjoying this content. Go ahead and give me a big thumbs up. Next week, we're going to be doing moisturizers. So I think I'm going to cut moisturizers into 2 separate episodes because serums and moisturizers are kind of on 2 different spectrums. They kind of do the same thing, but I think there's different times that you'd want one versus the other. One type of skincare would you want for one type of skincare you want for another. So I'm going to cut them into 2. So if you guys are liking this content, give me a big thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.